Let's go over Hisoka versus Chrollo. Of course, before I begin, I want to say that you should go ahead and read the fight along with the rest of Hunter x Hunter because it's just that good. I also want to say, oftentimes Hunter x Hunter can get really confusing, so I'll try to explain everything and make things simple, but I can't promise I'll make everything clear or answer all the questions you might have. Anyway, let's begin. The chapter begins with Hisoka and Chrollo's fight being announced at Heaven Arena's top floor. Chrollo and Hisoka share how they've both grown tired of their game of cat and mouse and agree it's finally time to fight to the death. The referee starts the fight, and the first thing Chrollo does is activate a new ability he's gained, Black Voice. Black Voice is originally Shalnark's, where through Antenna, he is able to control up to 2 people using a phone. Hisoka quickly notes that during their game of cat and mouse, Chrollo must have been preparing and gaining new abilities. Chrollo sends the ref to attack Hisoka, who quickly kicks the ref away and tries to go for Chrollo, but Chrollo dodges. Hisoka gets hit by a barrage of attacks, but this doesn't seem to faze him, due to him being able to completely focus on going over how Black Voice works. Hisoka goes over the best way to go about stopping the ref, and predicts Chrollo wants him to try to dismantle the antenna, and is most likely waiting for him to try to do so. Hisoka decides to attach bungee gum to the ref and pull him over to hit Chrollo. Chrollo dodges again, and begins to use the ref as a shield. Hisoka assumes that Chrollo's plan is to use the ref as a shield in order to get close, and stick him with an antenna and have it be checkmate. Hisoka decides to get the ref out of the way and tries to kill him. However, once at point blank range, the ref explodes, but as he explodes, Hisoka escapes to the ceiling using bungee gum, but later comes back down. Here, Chrollo explains a second new ability called Sun and Moon. Chrollo has a sun on his left hand and a moon on his right. Chrollo can touch someone and add a mark of either a sun or moon. When the 2 different marks touch, they instantly explode. Chrollo explains that to maximize the power of an explosion, he has to leave his hand while placing the mark for 3 to 5 seconds. But using an explosion that size would kill everyone in the arena. Once a mark has been placed, it will never vanish until it explodes, even if Chrollo closes his book. Hisoka realizes after this ability has been explained that Chrollo has been going easy on him, and Hisoka expresses his disappointment. Chrollo goes on to say that this isn't just any old regular deathmatch. What's important here is style, right? I dare say it's even more important than victory or defeat. Hisoka replies by saying he's disappointed Chrollo isn't fully focused on winning, but Chrollo assures him he has every intent on winning. In completely disrespectful fashion, Chrollo reveals a third ability, Double Face. This allows Chrollo to place a bookmark in his book and use whatever ability is on that page while the book is closed. Chrollo can also mark a page, then flip to a new one and use 2 abilities at once. After hearing this, Hisoka gets excited and says, "Yes, whatever it takes for you to be able to fight well. Battles or dances, we need to synchronize our pulses, our breath." Hisoka shares some questions he has about Double Face, and Chrollo later reveals that the bookmark isn't a stolen ability, but the bookmark belongs to the book itself, mostly implying Chrollo has awakened a new part of his ability. Chrollo gets disrespectful again and says that Double Face allows him to finally use abilities that require 2 hands, like Sun and Moon. Because previously, Chrollo would have to keep the book open with 1 hand, thus not being able to use both hands for an ability. Chrollo then finally says that he'll soon reveal 3 more abilities, and that this is a new record for number of abilities it takes for him to kill 1 person. Chrollo reveals his next ability, Order Stamp, Proof of Humanity. He explains that where Shalnark's ability controls people, Order Stamp controls puppets. And while Black Voice controls 2 people, Order Stamp can control many. Chrollo also goes over that because of the increased number of puppets, he's not allowed to give complex orders. Hisoka is slightly confused on what Chrollo's next step is, because while the book is open, he can have a maximum of 2 abilities activated, but using Order Stamp and Black Voice would require 2 abilities while the book is closed. Chrollo places the bookmark on a new page and goes down to the ref's dead body and shows off another ability. This one being Cortopi's Gallery Fake, where he can create a copy of anything. Chrollo gives more information about Order Stamp by saying it can't make puppets out of dead bodies, but it can make a puppet out of a copy of a dead body. Chrollo stamps the copy of the dead ref and gives the order to stand. He then says the only criteria for when a puppet ceases to be one is when the head is no longer attached to the body. He then gives the order to break Hisoka. Chrollo explains that when a puppet is given orders, whether it's someone alive or a copy, the person's previous personality will impact how they go about an order, and in past cases, when they've been given an order to kill, the puppet will freeze up. However, in Chrollo's words, by replacing the order to kill with break instead, somehow it seems to detach their mind from their body. He then goes on to say how the true thrill of his main ability, Skill Hunter, is to dive deep into an ability while also making it his own, referring to him finding a loop around getting the puppets to kill a target. The ref charges Hisoka, but gets killed with ease. Because Chrollo had said he'd be showing Hisoka 3 more abilities, Hisoka asks what the last one is. Chrollo reveals Convert Hands, transfer student, another 2-handed ability. When he touches someone with his right hand, they take on his appearance. When he touches someone with his left, he takes theirs. When he touches someone with both hands, he and that person instantly swap appearances. However, one restraint is that regardless of his form, the marks remain on his hands. Hisoka is glad the lecture is over, but Chrollo gives one last piece of information. Chrollo says out of all the abilities he's shown Hisoka, one of them, their previous owner, has died. Usually, when the original owner of an ability dies, that ability will disappear from his book. However, this one still remains. This grabs Hisoka's attention as it's evidence of post-mortem Nen. Chrollo and Hisoka talk some more, and Hisoka comes to the realization that sun and moon marks don't ever vanish until they explode. Hisoka says that with all these abilities, the situation has become extraordinarily troublesome. Then, they finally agree to actually begin their match. Chrollo immediately moves to the audience stands, and they both activate their abilities. Hisoka chases Chrollo and thinks about how if he stays too far away, he'll be attacked by either sun and moon or order stamp. But if he gets too close, he's at risk of being hit by Black Voice. He decides the best choice is to close the distance, but as expected, Chrollo puts someone in his way. Hisoka sees Chrollo move to the left, and as he follows, he's confronted by a second person. Hisoka kills the second guy no problem, but realizes Chrollo has disappeared into the crowd. Hisoka realizes, with all the options Chrollo has to hide and attack him, that it's created a difficult situation. Hisoka continues searching for Chrollo as audience members run away panicking. Hisoka sees that there are copies of people in the audience and knows that Chrollo must not be using Convert Hands and instead stole someone's clothes to hide as he used a gallery fake. A horde of audience members start rushing towards Hisoka, and he realizes that they're all marked with order stamp. Hisoka is able to conclude what steps Chrollo had taken, those being open his book to gallery fake, place bookmark, create lots of copies, activate order stamp, command them to break Hisoka. Throughout this whole fight, Hisoka shows off his incredibly high fight IQ, which I'd argue is one of the highest in all of Hunter x Hunter. But moving on. Hisoka goes over how he's dealing with about 30 puppets, but knowing Chrollo's speed, he probably made even more that are on standby, and that any direction he goes in, there will be puppets. He decides to once again escape up to the ceiling, but he's followed by a wave of puppets. Hisoka fights them off, but while distracted, Chrollo comes up behind him. Chrollo moves to punch him with his left hand, but quickly changes to a right kick. This kick unexpectedly hits him, and Hisoka says that he was certain he was aiming from the left, but as soon as he saw his reaction, Chrollo adjusted his attack. This showcase of skill, of course, only gets Hisoka more excited. And after falling down to the ground, he's swarmed by puppets. Hisoka has to once again fight them off, and while doing so, he mentions that because they lack feelings and emotions, they're a lot more difficult to deal with than normal humans, essentially saying order stamp is more troublesome in this situation than Black Voice. While this happens, Chrollo begins sneaking in and out of the chaos to sneak attack Hisoka. Hisoka also concludes that Chrollo's main strategy is to tire him out, so the best counter to the situation is to gradually get rid of all the puppets. However, Hisoka is slightly overwhelmed and the continued attacks from Chrollo prove to be troublesome. This process continues until Hisoka finally gets an idea of Chrollo's movements, to a point where he can counter. Once Chrollo comes in for another attack, Hisoka uses bungee gum to pull a decapitated head towards him in order to hit Chrollo with it. However, Chrollo predicted this action and dodges the head and lands a massive kick on Hisoka. However, Hisoka played into this and had a second bungee gum string attached to his foot, pulling a second head over, finally landing a hit on Chrollo. To get a good idea of the amount of damage done by the head hitting Chrollo in his blind spot, we get told that the average human head weighs about 16 pounds, but unfortunately, after landing such a solid hit on Chrollo, he's still able to quickly gather himself and get ready for the next round. Chrollo, of course, hides behind a wall of puppets, and Hisoka tries his hardest to fight his way through, focused on getting to him, but Chrollo quickly vanishes into the crowd. Hisoka says that while the puppets are active, Chrollo is using order stamp, So if he kills all the puppets, he's then free to use gallery fake to create another wave. And that's a loop he does not want to get stuck in. Hisoka decides to kill all but one puppet, so he can take a moment to think about Chrollo's remaining battle options. Hisoka goes over the two most likely options. Number 1, without dispelling order stamp, he'll give new orders to the puppets that are on standby. Or 2, he'll stop using order stamp in order to make more copies with gallery fake. However, after option 2, Chrollo might A. use order stamp to give new orders, or B. use convert hands to change his appearance and hide. Hisoka also goes over how although option 1 is possible, option 2 would be far more likely. After the stamp vanishes from the puppet Hisoka is holding, he realizes Chrollo has gone with option 2, and the question is now whether he's going to reactivate a new wave of puppets or continue hiding in the crowd. Hisoka also goes over if Chrollo wants to make more copies and then disappear, the best place for him to go back to is where the previous puppets were waiting on standby. Hisoka thinks how now he knows where Chrollo will be, he needs to get him before he can disappear again. Hisoka sees Chrollo and rushes towards him and launches a head at him. While doing this, Hisoka goes over that it's possible Chrollo doesn't have either gallery fake or order stamp activated, and that he actually has black voice, in which case he can't get too close or else he's at risk of being stuck with an antenna. But with all these possibilities, Hisoka decides that at this point he doesn't need to hold back and should go all in. Hisoka sets up a trap where he sticks several puppets with his bungee gum and launches them towards Chrollo, forcing him to jump. Hisoka had previously attached a bungee gum to Chrollo's foot, so when he went up in the air, Chrollo was able to pull him back down. At the same time, Hisoka had bungee gum on a head, and while pulling Chrollo down to the ground, he was also able to hit him with a head. Hisoka swings Chrollo to the ground and looks at what seems to be a defeated Chrollo. However, it's soon revealed that the Chrollo he was chasing was just a product of convert hands, and that he was then being controlled by Black Voice. He also realized that any puppet that was marked with Sun and Moon, the body and the marks won't ever disappear. We get an update on how Chrollo can use his abilities. Hisoka theorizes that Chrollo placed the bookmark on convert hands, and also had it open to Black Voice. However, where we first thought a two-handed ability could only be used when the book is closed with double face, we now know that Chrollo can use one hand of the ability if he wants. So what Hisoka thinks happened was Chrollo only used his right hand to make a fake Chrollo, and then with that free hand used Black Voice to control the double. Also, it's hard to tell because there's no image of it, but what Hisoka says implies that he notices a sun and moon mark on the head that's attached to his bungee gum, which will be important for later. Hisoka once again goes over Chrollo's options, but notes that soon rescue personnel will come, meaning Chrollo has about 10 minutes to make his final move. Chrollo starts making puppets cause a massive panic in order to hide his whereabouts. Hisoka looks around for Chrollo until the stadium announcer's headset is taken, and Chrollo announces the command to break Hisoka. Part of Chrollo's final plan is to send one last massive wave of puppets at Hisoka. Hisoka is faced with a concerning amount of opponents. However, this just makes him more excited. Hisoka gives his last attack his all and goes on an absolute rampage, taking out as many puppets as possible. As Hisoka fights off puppets, Chrollo activates Black Voice and sends someone after Hisoka. And as Hisoka pulls back a head into his hand in order to attack, a sudden explosion occurs and his hand is destroyed. Hisoka is confused at first, but quickly realizes that the head must have been marked with Sun and Moon, and whoever was being controlled by Black Voice must have also been marked by Sun and Moon and was controlled in order to make contact with it. Hisoka says it's time to go all in and that it's do or die. He goes on killing more puppets and uses bungee gum on his foot to pull himself up onto the side of a wall, where he continues to fight off puppets. He tries running away on the side of the wall, but he gets swarmed by a group all marked with Sun and Moon, and they activate an explosion. Hisoka survives, and as he's flying through the air, he tries to use his right leg to use bungee gum to get up to the ceiling. However, he realizes that his foot is gone. He tries to use his left leg, but before he can, he gets hit by a flying body. We then see the body was thrown by Chrollo. Hisoka makes one more attempt to get up to the ceiling, but Chrollo throws another body at him. Hisoka realizes that it's all over and begins to fall down into the crowd of puppets. Hisoka accepts his fate and falls down to the ground, where he's swarmed by puppets marked with Sun and Moon, and he's defeated by one final explosion.